Chapter 261, Night of Madness. Ordinary Earth mages could use the power of the earth to form all sorts of attacks. The earth element's forbidden magic, falling meteor and rage of the earth even had the terrifying power to destroy a city. Yet despite the earth mages being able to use the earth element to conduct all sorts of attacks, they were still unable to use the earth's power as flexibly as the earth elite zombie. As the favored child of the earth, once the earth elite zombie stepped on the ground, he could use the earth elemental energy to commit a lot of magical and wondrous things. It wasn't hard for him to use the power of the earth to form tunnels underneath the ground. When a tunnel appeared out of nowhere, Trunks knew that it must lead towards the mine. The four powers of the Valley of Sunshine were currently locked in intense battle in order to claim the silver mine. Yet the appearance of such a tunnel allowed Trunks and the others to directly enter the innermost location without any trouble at all. Understood. Trunks chuckled, then let out an eagle-like shriek. Due to the clamor from the heaven shaking fighting within the valley, Trunks' shriek didn't seem out of the ordinary. Through the unit demon's surveillance, Honsha-O was able to see Grant and the others snap to attention after hearing Trunks' shriek, then immediately move vigilantly towards the inside of the valley. Roar! Exclamation mark. The Berserk Lord howled towards the sky and hurled the battle axe from his hands, causing a piercing radiant light to enclose 7 people from the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band. All of the people that were covered in his light had their body torn savagely into pieces, blood spraying all over. Lord, be careful of Lord. If I'm seeing correctly, what he's holding should be the divine weapon of the Berserkers. Berserker's battle axe. Lorne is already a powerhouse who can become berserk twice over. Legends says that a berserker with the Berserker's battle axe can use its power to enter the berserk mode once again. A berserker who can become berserk 3 times is definitely stronger than a great sword master. I think he is going to be the hardest to handle in the valley. Even Ferguson might not be his opponent, so you definitely have to be careful of him. Trunks couldn't help but remind Honsha-O. The moment Trunks saw the enraged muscle bulging Lord release a terrifying aura, Honsha-O actually became rather interested in trying after hearing Trunks' words and said softly, a berserker who can become berserk 3 times, he that's rather interesting. There's also those Katar orcs, be careful not to become surrounded by them, otherwise when their totems hit the earth they will form a very terrifying shockwave. Once you're swept by the impact, it would be very difficult to live as an old hand in the valley. Trunks was quite clear about the different faction and couldn't help but remind Honsha-O after seeing that the battle in the valley had officially started. Don't worry, I'll keep it in mind. Be careful when you go inside. I'll have the Earth Elite Zombie follow you guys so that if your movement is exposed you can leave from the tunnel immediately. With the Earth Elite Zombie underground, your safety should be fine. Honsha-O gazed at the group of people excitedly as bloodlust gradually rose from the depths of his heart. After saying that to Trunk, he immediately walked towards the insides of the valley in a ghost-like manner. Seeing that Honsha-O had left, the little skeleton walked over to the Earth Elite Zombie's side and patted his shoulders, then followed Honsha-O as usual. In Gilbert's eyes this wasn't anything special, since this wasn't the first time he saw the two beings communicate. However, Trunks, faced with this obvious jarring of common sense, he exclaimed once again when he saw the little skeleton's strange actions. Chief, what is it? Grant couldn't help but ask after rushing over when he saw Trunks' weird expression. Trunks remained dumbly looking at the little skeleton's departing back. No, nothing, all of you follow me. Trunks smiled dryly and shook his head, then he waved at Grant before walking down into the tunnel. The Earth Elite Zombie was very intelligent. The moment he saw Trunks jump down, he went further into the darkness and led the way in front. What is going on? Why is there a tunnel? Grant couldn't help but exclaim with a face full of shock when he came down and saw an endless tunnel. Don't ask so much, just hurry, Gilbert yelled, then immediately followed Trunks into the tunnel. All of the mercenaries who'd come down were extremely confused, but once they got over their surprise they all filed into the tunnel. After everyone had entered, the tunnel closed miraculously without a trace. Meanwhile the valley was in chaos. The 100-something elites from the 4 significant powers of the Valley of Sunshine were crashing together. When Honsha-O neared that area in interest, he found that the situation had changed in an odd way, completely out of his predictions. Originally, due to the Earth Elite Zombies' actions, the other 3 forces had rushed towards the Rainbow Sickles. Out of them, the Kyra mercenaries with ferocious war god Lorne as ferocious as a war god and slaughtered the Rainbow Sickles, who had no corresponding expert. Even though the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band had the advantage advantage in numbers. If the House of Minlo and the Guitar Orc tribe had also attacked together, the Rainbow Sickles would have been in dire straits. However, the situation wasn't like that. The House of Minlo and the Guitar Orc tribe that had rushed forward with Lordan's mercenaries all defected once they neared the Rainbow Sickles. With an explosive roar from Adam Minlo and Guitar, the experts from the two forces all started attacking the Kyra mercenaries. Wahaha, Lordan, you never would have imagined this, right? Exclamation mark. The real target is your Kyra mercenary band in today's fight. You finally left the Valley of Sunshine, so don't think about going back. Haha. Florida of the Rainbow Sickles suddenly laughed maniacally. As he floated in the air, his loud voice passed to every single corner of the valley. Times have changed. The Kyra mercenaries has controlled the Valley of Sunshine for too long. No matter what, you have to move a little. Adam Minlo's the master of the House of Minlo's sinister voice also rang out as he flew towards Lordan on a great golden winged rock. The circumstances had changed shockingly. It seemed like the Rainbow Sickles, Adam Minlo and the Orc tribe had all come to an agreement. The intense argument beforehand was only a way of covering the fact that these three forces had already set their target on Lordan's Kyra mercenary band in secret. Those accompanying Lordan were the most elite berserkers of the Kyra mercenary band. Out of the 50-something people, there were 20 berserkers who had the ability to become berserk once, and 4 of them, including Harris, had the ability to become berserk twice. Add to that the presence of the 4 archmages and 3 sword masters they'd recruited over the years. It meant that the majority of the strongest people from the Kyra mercenaries were all there. Yet when faced with the sudden defection of the House of Minlo and the Orc tribe, 6 berserkers on the outer ring were immediately slaughtered by the experts from the two forces in the blink of an eye. On Florida's side, his grandfather Ferguson had already descended from the sky and was watching the changes in the valley with a cold gaze. He didn't join in the attack on Lordan. Roar! Lordan howled as the berserker's war axe in his hand attacked without a pattern. Meanwhile, a powerful aura spread as the berserker's battle axe caused curtains of light to appear, and all those who were swept into the light were smashed into smithereens. Follow me to break out! Lordan's yell echoed through the entire valley. All of the people from the Kyra mercenary band suddenly changed directions and rushed towards the House of Minlo that were charging at towards them. Adam Minlo waved the golden spear in his hands atop his rock, making the air sound out with his sword aura. As golden winged rock flapped its wings, tornadoes formed in the air and swept towards the people of the Kyra mercenary band. A fire mage of the House of Minlo released 3 snakes of fire that were 5 meters long. They spread out as if they were alive, one towards Lordan while the other 2 slithered to flank the Kyra mercenary group in a cone-like formation. The tender green plants that they'd slithered over in their path quickly melted. Adam, you ancient piece of crap, if you want to die then I'll send you on your way. Lordan roared in anger and leapt into the air. The berserker's battle axe flared out a curtain of light, causing the 5-meter-long fire snake to rain down from the sky in sparks before it even managed to draw near his body. Silver light exploded from the berserker's battle axe like satin sashes. It surged out like a waterfall as it shot directly towards Adam Minlo on the great golden winged rock. Ding! Adam Minlo's golden spear connected directly with the berserker's battle axe, making Lordan's leaping figure tremble and then fall from the sky into the middle of the House of Minlo. Adam Minlo grunted, then quickly urged the rock to fly higher as if he was afraid of the rampaging Lordan. As Lordan howled in anger, he made his move once again. The fact that he landed right in the middle of the House of Minlo also made things more convenient. Before the archmage who'd casted dancing fire snakes could react, he was split in half by a hack from the battle axe, spilling his blood and guts onto the ground. Lordan's savage power seemed to have found an outlet after landing in the middle of Adam Minlo's troops. He instantly caused the brutal death of several people, but the experts of the House of Minlo had managed to react by now, and they all aimed the broadswords, spears and bows at Lordan. All sorts of attacks swarmed him before Lordan was able to cause more tremendous damage. Dinkling dong! The berserker's battle axe hand danced furiously in Lordan's as it blocked most of the attacks. However, several arrows still penetrated his defenses and pinned his shoulders and back. A spear also appeared from a strange angle and carved a thin and long wound underneath his arm where blood spurted forth madly. However, The Berserk Lord did not know pain at all. Furthermore, the defenses of his body were also terrifying. Although all of the arrows and longbows had packed such power and momentum that they would pierce through a normal person's body, they only managed to scratch Lorden's skin. Regardless of arrow or spear, the missiles only entered about a nail's depth into Lorden's muscles. As long as we kill Lord, I Florida swear to back off from the fight over the silver mine. Don't let him leave here alive. Florida rose in the air as the exquisite staff in his hand continuously shimmered, sending out exquisite radiant sword slashes and pulses towards the people from the Cairo mercenary band. The orc chieftain Qatar howled and led a group of orcs empowered by various shamanic spells in a charge towards the Cairo mercenaries. Although these orcs were least in number, they seemed to be immune to most of the magic attacks. Aside from causing their skin to turn redder, the water and fire spells casted by the Cairo archmages were not of any use. A savage power impacted the ground, causing one of the archmages to become assaulted by a huge tremor. Even his rank 3 magical beast, the deep water venom python, was hit as well. His steed died instantly while the archmage bled from all of his orifices. He frantically used a levitation spell to fly into the sky. Since this fight had included all of the true experts in the 4 great powers of the Valley of Sunshine, the dense murderous or due to their hatred and bitterness were all attracted by a power when they died, causing them to gather behind a huge boulder. Han Shao, who had been watching excitedly behind the boulder, had bloodshot eyes at the moment as waves of blood-red evil aura wreathed around him. As more and more experts died, the terrifying aura around Han Shao's body became denser and denser. Roar! Exclamation mark! A crazy long howl sounded out from afar, causing an enormous boulder the size of a house to suddenly break apart, its pieces flying everywhere. The evil aura around Han Shao had condensed into a strange wave of blood as his crimson eyes glared savagely ahead. The terrifying aura from his body spread out quickly and everyone's gazes became fixated on Han Shao. When all of the powerhouses in the valley felt this evil raging aura, Han Shao turned swiftly into a ray of bloodlight and shot into the midst of the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band like a bloodthirsty demon. He was able to pound away at 3 great sword masters of the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band with a single punch, while the blood that spurting out from his punch condensed into plasma. It's him, kill him. Florida's hatred for Han Shao was deeply entrenched into his bones. Even though Han Shao's appearance was very different from usual at this moment, he was still able to recognize him with a glance, causing him to yell out furiously. However, for an unknown reason, Florida, who should have been the first one to make a move, suddenly felt deep terror in his heart. Although he yelled loudly about killing Han Shao, he subconsciously moved back. It was obvious that he was afraid. Chapter 262, Resurrection of the Dead. Florida, we meet again. Han Shao sneered with crimson eyes. He was terrifying, like someone possessed by a demon. Normally speaking, once someone of the bloodlust realm went berserk, they would lose their mind and enter a mentality of endless slaughter, completely unable to wake up. However, during the journey to the Forbidden Place last time, Han Shao and the Demon Slayer Reg had taken in a lot of specters. When the pure power had been absorbed by the Demon Infant, it seemed to have a miraculous effect on him. This time Han Shao felt that most of the evil aura of hatred, terror and savagery swirled around was actually absorbed by the Demon Slayer Reg within his body, causing most of the things swirling around his body to only be pure evil power. The negative emotions were the main reason why once Han Shao would lose control over himself once he entered the bloodlust mode. Although the infinite bloodlust within Han Shao's heart did not decrease when those negative emotions were absorbed by the Demon Slayer Reg, his firm will allowed his mind to remain clear. This differed from when he was in the forbidden area where he'd nearly killed Gilbert, since he was unable to distinguish friend from foe. You won't be able to run away. You'll die today. Kill him. Florida fled until he was in the place that he was safe before calling out hatefully, "You're actually not dead." Grand Magus Ferguson of the Church of Light exclaimed as he gazed at Han Shao. "How could I die so quickly when you haven't died yet, Kaka?" Han Shao laughed idly and made as if an eagle preparing to soar into the sky. Dense bloodlust spread out with Han Shao as the center and formed an area suffused with blood-red mist. A terrifying and savage aura exploded out from within this area. The remaining power that had yet to dissipate from the experts who just died all coalesced with the blood mist. As Han Shao's aura became stronger and stronger, the area became a burning cloud that moved to cover Ferguson. "What? What kind of magic is this? Exclamation mark. Even with Ferguson's insight, he was unable to understand Han Shao's methods of attack. However, he instinctively sensed danger. The magic staff in his hand shone brilliantly as he cast an Illuminate, quickly backing away to hide like Florida. Once the spell Illuminate had been cast, it was as if another sun had appeared in the sky. A ball of piercing light carrying pure and holy power surged towards Han Shao. Unfortunately, while Illuminate had the power to exorcise evil, it was completely ineffective toward Han Shao's demonic techniques. As the people underneath him died gruesomely, the aura from Han Shao became stronger and stronger. A mist of blood covering a large patch of area spread out, causing the 8 rainbow sickles to feel as if an evil power had surged into their bodies. They cried out in anguish until their bodies bulged and exploded. Just who exactly are you? You're more evil than the Calamity Church. I won't allow you to get away with this. Ferguson grew furious and roared while pointing at Han Shao as the rainbow sickles instantly exploded without any hope of resistance. Old fart, I reminded you last time and you didn't listen. Although Han Shao still retained control over his mind in the bloodlust realm, his desire for slaughter was unable to be suppressed. Thus, he spoke coldly as he controlled the mnemonic cloud towards the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band. A blood-red fan flew out from the bloody mist. The intense murderous aura around Han Shao surged crazily into the blood fan, causing the pictures of hundreds of demons on the fan to release an intense blood mist. The bloodlust fan was a mnemonic treasure that Han Shao had refined during his 3 months of closed-door cultivation. It was specifically used by those within the bloodlust realm. Han Shao's blood essence was in the bloodlust fan, and it was able to transmute the murderous aura wreathing Han Shao's body into a bloody mist that would cause blood to boil and bodies to explode. Now that it had been released by Han Shao, it immediately showed a spectacular effect by converting the murderous aura. As the number of deceased in the surroundings increased, the terrifying aura of blood around Han Shao also became more and more powerful. Wherever the blood fan passed, those ensconced by the mist were unable to control the blood in their bodies from boiling, and they all imploded with gruesome deaths. Use wind magic to blow away the bloody mist quickly. Seeing that the bloody mist was traveling over, Florida immediately lost his calm as he gave this quick order. The wind mages on this side immediately cast tornado and gale wind spells as soon he had shouted. The dozen or so small tornadoes churned over and destroyed everything like a knife. The bloody mist that had been gathered by the blood fan was blown apart, no longer able to coalesce as Han Shao wished. No treasure was perfect. Thus, Han Shao was neither surprised nor discouraged when the bloody mist of the bloodlust fan was torn apart by wind magic. As Florida yelled loudly and the remaining rainbow sickles attacked, Han Shao's body flew backwards and swiftly stopped in the air over Lorden's head. Lorden, I'll help you break through the encirclement, but that cursed shop belongs to me. Furthermore, the Soul Destroyers will have the right to publicly recruit mercenaries in the Valley of Sunshine. How's that sound? Han Shao stood straight in the air, surrounded by his murderous aura, and threw out these suggestions whilst looking down at the wound-riddled Lorden. It was obvious that 3 of the great factions in the Valley of Sunshine had plotted together against Lorden in this battle. If Lorden died here, then the Valley of Sunshine would immediately be plunged into chaos. The Rainbow Sickles would then be most likely to take charge. This was something that Han Shao didn't wish to see, and it was also detrimental to the Soul Destroyer mercenary band's development. Due to this, even if it wasn't for Lorden and purely for Trunks and himself, Han Shao would have helped Lorden break free as well. Of course, it would be all the more perfect if Han Shao could secure some benefits before helping him. Han Shao also believed that Lorden would not refuse in this situation. As he expected, Lorden did not hesitate. He looked up and yelled back at almost the same moment Han Shao had finished speaking. Agreed. If our people can leave the valley alive, I'll also give you an extra 10,000 gold. Deal. Han Shao replied calmly. As spell after spell was chanted and the canopy of necromancy was released, the sky became covered by dark green clouds that were dense and unable to be broken apart. Meanwhile, several acidic swamps suddenly formed in the middle of the Guitar Orc tribe and House of Menlo troops. As Han Shao chanted out various mystic spells whilst waving his hands, rays of strange light shot out beneath the canopy of necromancy, landing onto the bodies of the experts who had died not too long long ago a terrifying scene occurred. The people that had been killed not long ago began to struggle to their feet without a hint of humanity left in their eyes. The wounds on their bodies still bled, even the intestines of some of them could be seen. What was more horrifying was that some of them had their guts dangling from their waist as if they hadn't properly put their belts on. When the deceased stood up one by one, it was enormously shocking and absolutely horrifying to those who were still alive. Every single live person who noticed this scene let out terrifying screams, causing the entire valley to sink further into chaotic uproar. Resurrection of corpses was one of the most horrifying and memorable magics of necromancy. It was something that had become an ancient legend, having disappeared from the continent for several thousand years. There was no record of this spell in the now forlorn branch of necromancy magic. However, on such a night and in such a place, the four great factions of the Valley of Sunshine had the fortune of witnessing this long-lost evil magic. Legends were legends after all. When corpses stood up one by one and attacked their former comrades while waving their weapons, the shock completely destroyed their companions' minds. "Oh gods! How is this possible?" Ferguson let out an anguished wail as he looked at everything that was happening in disbelief. "Lord, don't say that I didn't help you." "Quickly use this chance to break free." Han Shao grinned coldly as zombies and skeletons appeared out of nowhere and rushed towards the four shocked great factions alongside the resurrected corpses. Under the cover of the canopy of necromancy, these beings of darkness became like fish in water, having their power and speed greatly increased. After being reminded by Han Shao, the immensely shocked Lord quickly came back to himself and immediately yelled, "What are you guys spacing out for?" Charge! The immense roar made the dumbly staring Cairo mercenaries return to themselves. As they looked at their intimate companions who'd already passed away stand up in terrifying form, the mercenaries were absolutely shocked senseless. If it weren't for Lorton's shout waking them from their stupor, they might have needed quite a while to return to their senses. However, since they were Han Shao's protective targets, they were still fine even when they were staring off into space. As for the other three forces, the dead suddenly latched onto some of their ankles, the subsequent terror from which might become engraved on their hearts for the rest of their lives. Some who reacted a bit slower were stabbed to death by their former comrades. Han Shao stood in the air and gazed coldly at the savage changes underneath. The murderous aura from his body surged and flared, releasing an evil atmosphere. When coupled with his savage look and red eyes, it caused him to look the epitome of terror. Chapter 263, Domineering Grandpa. Hurry and cast Radiant Glory. Expel this evil magic, Florida shouted in a panic as he looked at the dumbfounded Ferguson. The shocked Ferguson only reacted when he was reminded by his grandson. The magic staff in his hand burst forth again with the holy force of light as his aged voice resonated throughout the valley. "O noble God of light, hear my calls. Disperse all darkness. Radiant glory." A powerful light tore through the sky. Holy light elements permeated the air above the entire valley. The black-green layer of clouds created by Han Shao's canopy of necromancy immediately began to disperse under the radiance of the holy light and disappeared without a trace in a short time. Brilliant light scattered throughout the valley and intermixed with the numerous stars that dotted the sky to emit a soft light. As the holy force of light descended, the deathly air was quickly dispelled. The dark creatures summoned by Han Shao started smoking under the rays of the holy light, and their speed and power were hindered. However, the resurrected dead bodies weren't much affected by the strong light from the radiant glory. Even though their skin also began emitting white smoke, they could still move freely, so they rushed straight at the troops of the three great powers. The experts who died thanks to Han Shao's necromancy magic also had the presence of dark creatures on them. However, they'd only just died after all, so this dark presence was very weak. This enabled them to barely manage to resist the rays of light magic. The Cairo mercenary band still had around 20 people left thanks to Han Shao's assistance earlier. They took advantage of the House of Minlu being stunned senseless to escape the encirclement of the three great powers and flee to the entrance of the valley. Han Shao knew the canopy of necromancy would certainly be dispelled wherever the radiant glory shone upon, and that the summoned dark creatures similarly wouldn't be spared. However, A bit of acid from the acid bog had been already released earlier, so the mint-chasing Lorden's group were more or less affected by this acid. The House of Minlo was the one most affected. Their magical creature mounts panicked when they stepped into the acid, their feet and legs quickly consumed by the acid. This looked similar to the effects that Radiant Glory had when hitting dark creatures. Be careful. I'm going to kill him, this damnable evil of a necromancer. The House of Minlo had spent years of effort to finally gather this group of high-rank magical creatures. Now that 6 of their rank 2 or 3 creatures had died in the blink of an eye, Adam Minlo was furious. He roared loudly in anger as he glared at Han Sha-Oh. Kiki, wanna kill me? Come on. Han Sha-Oh couldn't suppress his thirst for blood and had been worrying about where he could vent. As soon as he heard the furious Adam Minlo's furious shout, his blood-red pupils immediately snapped to him. Using the art of the mnemonic ninth heavens to float in the air, Han Sha-Oh's entire body was filled with ferocious killing intent that was horrifying. Even Florida, who had a bone-deep hatred towards him, didn't dare to issue an order to attack. On one hand, it was because Han Sha-Oh's momentum was too terrifying, and on the other it was because it was difficult to handle him when he was so high up in the air. Kill Lorden first. The Cairo mercenary is finished as soon as he's dead. Leave this guy alone for now. Florida couldn't help but shout anxiously when he saw Asa and Andy floating up and raising their magic staffs to deal with Han Sha-Oh. Lorden was leading a group of survivors and rushing towards the entrance of the valley. Florida had gone through a great deal of effort and was even willing to let go of the Mithril mine this time to kill Lorden. He wanted to take control of the Valley of Sunshine for the Rainbow Sickles, so he naturally couldn't let the former leave alive. Upon hearing Florida's shout, more than 30 Rainbow Sickle experts pursued Lorden together. Andy, who'd floated up and was about to deal with Han Sha-Oh with Asa, turned and flew towards Florida after looking at Han Sha-Oh standing arrogantly in the air. However, Asa, whose arm had been sliced off by Han Sha-Oh by the Demon Slayer Edge, didn't listen to Florida's order. He glared viciously at Han Sha-Oh and rushed at him along with the Adam Minlo. Ferguson released the Radiant Glory behind Asa, then softly heaved a few breaths and floated over like a fluttering willow leaf in the air. Shoot him, Adam Minlo commanded from the back of the rock, his hand holding the dazzling golden spear as he lunged at Han Sha-Oh. The House of Minlo only had less than 30 experts left after being swept through by the Berserkers and Han Sha-Oh's necromancy magic. Under Adam Minlo's command, they each aimed their crossbow bolts and spinning axes at Han Sha-Oh, who was standing grandly in the sky. 3 Yin demons were observing the entire battlefield. Therefore Han Sha-Oh could clearly see any abnormal actions that occurred. When the attacks from the Minlo's troops hurtled through the air towards him, he only curved his lips into a disdainful sneer without taking any other action. The attacks from below were just about to connect with Han Sha-Oh when his proudly aloof body suddenly wavered, then split into 4 clones. These 4 clones looked exactly the same as the original. They flew in 4 different directions towards Ferguson, Adam Minlo, Asa and the members of the House of Minlo respectively. The bolts and spinning axes from the Minlo people below suddenly connected with empty air. They didn't even touch a corner of Han Sha-Oh's clothes. What is this? Exclamation mark. How did he become 4 people? Damn it. Am I seeing things? Shocked exclamations poured out from the mouths of those of the House of Minlo nonstop. Seeing one of the Honshuos speedily closing in on them, Ferguson's side had no idea what was going on. Ferguson and Asa dodged instinctively. Only Adam Minlo on the back of the rock still met Han Sha-Oh's attack head-on with his golden spear despite his surprise. Successive sounds ripped through the air at this time as 7 bone spurs shimmering with cold light came at Adam Minlo from all directions. The little skeleton stood proudly on a huge rock, a light dancing within his purple eye as his gaze locked onto Adam Minlo, who rode the golden winged rock. The 7 bone spurs flew in a bizarre orbit as they attacked the golden winged rock. The bone spurs sparkled with a brilliant jade-like light like 7 nearly sharp snow blades. The bone spurs churned into the rock's wings, causing metallic dings and sharp whines to emit from the rock. Blood splattered from its wounds and dyed the golden feathers. It was obviously injured. Adam Minlo had originally rushed at Han Sha-Oh with a ferocious momentum. He was now waving the golden spear around to block the 7 bone spurs. He kept cursing non-stop, evidently angered to death. "You old thing, you want to kill me, Kiki." The three clones suddenly vanished, revealing the original Hansha-O now standing 10 meters above Adam Milo. His pupils were deep red as he cawed madly, the killing aura around his body condensing onto his arm. As Hansha-O's hand smashed downwards, the focused killing aura rushed violently down like layers of blood. "Damn it!" Adam Milo cursed loudly. The spear had been defending him against the 7 bone spurs was forced to change directions and head upwards instead. He pushed the fighting aura of a Skyrider to its limit, forming a silver curtain of light to block the invasion of the bloody waves. However, this force had been distilled from Hansha-O's murderous aura, terrifying power embodied within him. A thick killing intent that could cover the heavens and earth dropped down like a cage, its force comparable to a mountain. The curtain of light formed by the fighting aura could only resist for a span of 2 breaths of time before it was obliterated by the bloody waves. Rumble! A loud explosion resounded. The bloody waves were like a river from the galaxy, surging over both Adam Milo and the Golden Winged Rock. They drove the super rank magical creature straight down into the ground, creating an earthquake that shook the mountain wall. Seeing that Hansha-O had shot down both their head of house and the Golden Winged Rock, the experts of the family suddenly panicked. They gave up chasing Lordan and swarmed to where their leader had fallen. As soon as they arrived, they saw both Adam Milo and the Golden Winged Rock struggling to their feet. The men immediately surrounded the two. When Hansha-O saw that the house of Milo had already surrounded their head of house and the Golden Winged Rock, Hansha-O stood still in the sky and didn't continue to attack. The Golden Winged Rock was obscuring his vision, so he couldn't see if Adam Milo was dead or alive. His terrifying presence and blood-red eyes returned to normal after a while. Hansha-O's current strength could easily deal with a Skyrider or a Great Sword Master. With the little skeleton, victory was even more assured. However, the reason why he'd been able to thoroughly trounce Adam Milo and the Super Rank Rock just now was mostly likely due to the abundant killing aura that had filled the valley. His one attack earlier had released all the killing aura he'd absorbed from the valley. Hansha-O had regained his calm. He once again summoned the 3 Yin demons to surveil every moment within the valley. Chapter 264, Stomping on a Grand Magus. Who on earth is this person? Too formidable. Even head Adam Milo and his super rank magical creature were taken down. Too horrifying. Just what kind of skill did he use? Why couldn't I identify it at all? He definitely has the power of a sacred sword master, otherwise he wouldn't be that powerful. The small powers in the Valley of Sunshine were all hiding in the valley's periphery. They were trembling and cowering as they watched the chaotic battle unfold and whispered exclamations. And the in-chief Lord of the Kyra mercenary band remained behind by himself after escaping the encirclement. He emitted wailing battle cries as the battle axe in his hand emitted layers of silver light under the moonlight. The muscles on Lordan's bare upper body were now sparkling with silver light. His eyebrows and thick chest hair had changed from black to silver. Cracking sounds ringing out from his 2-meter-tall body. His frame seemed to be stretched by some force as he grew another half-meter taller. He now clenched the battle axe with both hands instead of one. There was an enormous presence exuding from the weapon that now madly sparkled with silver light. Lordan was roaring as he ferociously chopped the battle axe down towards the Rainbow Sickle mercenaries who were pursuing him. Piercing silver light shot straight forward and crackled as it swept the ground. The several Rainbow Sickle mercenaries simply had no way to defend against the invasion as their bodies were sliced neatly through. The speed of the silver light was extremely fast, cutting through several mercenaries without impediment. It then continued to close in on the horrified Florida with incredible momentum. He fled frantically into the air, his forehead now covered in cold sweat. A thrice berserker? Oh my god. Lordan is crazy. That must be the divine weapon of the berserker tribe, the berserker battle axe. No wonder his power has become one notch stronger. What a terrifying fellow. No shit. How could he hold sway in the Valley of Sunshine if he's not strong enough? Question mark. The people watching the fight in the dark couldn't help but exclaim as they saw Lordan go berserk once again and reach a legendary status that almost no one could attain. Shoot him. Arrows, axes and spears shot straight at Lordan in accordance with Florida's shout. In addition, lightning bolts as thick as an arm cleaved violently down at him from the sky, dancing like fire snakes. A dense mass of whizzing arrows and erupting earth spikes blasted towards Lordan. An intense series of attacks descended. A large patch was charred, the earth cracked and every plant was disintegrated to ashes. Arrows and spears were scattered all over the ground. Dust filled the air that the wind was slowly dispersing. Lordan remained in the center of it all with his battle axe in hand, proud and tall. Lordan seemed to fear no pain after becoming thrice berserk. Even though the skin of his singed body was cracked in many places, they were all minor skin injuries. For Lordan to stand firmly after facing such an enormous number of physical and magical attacks from experts, his power was truly extremely terrifying. Lordan howled at the moon. He unexpectedly still had some spare energy left as he charged at the Qatar orcs and Rainbow Sickle mercenaries. What a powerful man! A thrice berserker is truly exceptionally powerful. His body was unexpectedly immune to a majority of both physical and magical attacks. Han Shao stood in the air stunned. He involuntarily praised Lordan as he watched his actions. Lordan once again threw out the battle axe that was flaring with radiance in all directions. The weapon emitted dazzling silver lights as it flew in an arc. Several archers in hiding immediately had their flesh and blood rended, the gore spewing around messily. The battle axe returned to Lordan's hand after flying a full circle. In fact, it seemed to have a bit of the essence of the law of activating magic. However, the battle axe returned to Lordan only after a short flight. It wasn't able to float in the air and follow his wishes like the Demon Slayer wretch. Han Shao let out a sinister laugh. Taking advantage of the fact that everyone was still focused on Lordan, he suddenly released the Demon Slayer wretch. A purple light blade shot out and made its way towards the Thunder Archmage Asa with a howling sound. Asa resented Han Shao the most. It was only because Han Shao had exploded into 4 clones earlier that he was unable to easily kill Han Shao. Asa's head snapped to Lordan's howl for only a second when he saw Han Shao's attack unexpectedly close. He was immediately frightened out of his wits. Last time I only managed to slice off your right arm, but this time I'll cut off your head. Han Shao leered ferociously and rushed towards Asa. At the moment, both the Rainbow Sickles and the Qatar orcs were giving their all to deal with the thrice berserk Lordan. The experts from the House of Milo were carefully protecting Adam Milo. Only the lad Grand Magus Ferguson was near Asa. As Asa dodged in fright, Ferguson suddenly turned around and chanted the spell Radiant Protection. A translucent layer of light appeared and firmly wrapped around Asa. Asa heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing his body wrapped in the Radiant Protection. As he was about to cast a lightning protection spell, he suddenly cried out in alarm, "Mr. Ferguson, be careful!" As it turned out, the Demon Slayer edge that was originally aiming for Asa suddenly changed its direction as it drew closer, whizzing towards Ferguson, who had just cast Radiant Protection. At the same time, Han Shao also turned around and followed closely. He didn't even spare a glance at Asa as his eyes stared coldly at Ferguson. Ferguson suddenly realized that Han Shao's attack at Asa had only been a feint. Han Shao's real goal had been Ferguson from the start. When he understood this, a strong dread shrouded his heart. He hastily chanted the incantation for Radiant Protection to thoroughly cover his body. Clang, clank. Sweet metallic sounds of the Demon Slayer edge colliding with Ferguson rang out. Crack after crack appeared in the layers of Radiant Protection. From within, Ferguson quickly focused his mental strength to mobilize the light element and desperately repair the cracks. Hey old fart, I had warned already you the last time you pursued me, yet you still stubbornly took action and almost killed me in the river. You didn't think this day would come, did you? Exclamation mark. You just cast Radiant Glory, so your mental strength is already exhausted. Now after 2 Radiant Protection spells, let's see how long you can hold on for. Han Shao closed in like a ghost. He didn't withdraw the Demon Slayer edge into his body. Instead, his magical yuan furiously circulated and coalesced itself into 2 attacks. Han Shao gave an odd chuckle as he unceremoniously immobilized his fists to violently assault the surface of the Radiant Protection. The sound of the violent bombardment was like a loud drum. Cracks in the Radiant Protection spread rapidly beneath the relentless brutal attacks. Ferguson almost had an impulse to vomit blood inside the protection. He'd never felt so lacking in light elemental energy as he did now. He was giving it his utmost efforts to exhaust his mental strength. Extreme dread branded Ferguson's heart with Han Shao's continued pummeling. Only now did he realize how unfathomable Han Shao's heart was. He finally understood why the latter released the canopy of necromancy and so many dark creatures in his presence. He had been Han Shao's original target from the start. start. Everything had been to take revenge for the last time Ferguson and Maxine had chased him down at the small river. This time Hansha expended quite a bit of effort on this plan. He'd first forced Ferguson to cast Radiant Glory in order to expend a large amount of his mental strength. He then pretended to attack ASA and made Ferguson exhaust his mental strength in casting Radiant Protection before finally closing in for close quarter combat. Hansha had also expended a great deal of mental strength to cast the Canopy of Necromancy and summon the large amount of dark creatures. However, he was also a powerful melee attacker with a strange weapon in addition to being a mage. Although both sides wasted a similar amount of mental strength, Hansha could still launch an offensive with his weapon. If all of this had been within Hansha's calculations, then his unfathomable heart and his deep sophisticated scheming were all beyond imagination. Now that Ferguson understood, he'd never feared anyone as much as he did now. "Chase me now, why don't you?" You motherfucking us. Oh. B! Do you think you are to decide my life and death? You old fart, you only know to protect your own. I'll make it so that you can't chase me in the future. Hansha cursed loudly as he assaulted the Radiant Protection. Being smashed in both spirit and body, Ferguson finally couldn't help vomiting blood. An immense arrow of blood sprayed out onto the Radiant Protection, dyeing its pure white color crimson. The cracks became increasingly wider. "Florida, what the hell are you still chasing for? Your grandfather is going to get beaten to death." ASA was casting lightning magic non-stop to attack Hansha. However, the latter was constantly changing his position to evade, while each of his blows still ruthlessly smashed into the Radiant Protection. ASA finally couldn't help but yell out upon seeing Ferguson vomit blood. The thrice berserk state couldn't last for too long. Lorton had already turned to escape. Florida was chasing him in high spirits when he heard ASA curse loudly. He suddenly panicked and involuntarily looked back. "Old fart, bye-bye." As Florida looked on in deep shock, Hansha grinned as he dealt a blow aimed at a crack in the Radiant Protection. This spell had long since been overwhelmed by the brutal attacks and finally shattered, collapsing in a burst of purple light. The body covered in blood of Ferguson suddenly emerged, then fell listlessly on the ground. He was deader than dead. Kiki. Hansha flew higher and higher with his round of creepy cackling. He left arrogantly under the gaze shot out from Florida's eyes that ached to rip him in half. Chapter 265, Raw Ors. Hansha immediately ducked behind a lush bush upon leaving the valley. He used his mental strength to contact the Earth Elite Zombie and the little skeleton. Whoosh! A thin white light gleamed under the moonlight, whizzing from within the valley to settle beside Hansha. This was obviously the little skeleton holding his bone knife. The 7 bone spurs had returned to the little skeleton's back. He held the bone knife very leisurely, like a child touring a flower garden, not caring at all about the chaotic happenings in the valley. What a veteran! After establishing contact with his mind, Hansha could sense the Earth Elite Zombie swimming towards him from the depths of the valley. 10 seconds later, the ground beneath his feet loosened and the honest Earth Elite Zombie clambered out. "Where are they?" Hansha hastily asked upon seeing the Earth Elite Zombie return. The Earth Elite Zombie was taken aback. He scratched his head dumbly in a moment of thought, then sank again down to the ground, going back to the valley using the same way. However, his speed was a little slower this time. Hansha focused his eyes and discovered that the Earth Elite Zombie had drilled a tunnel that one person could fit in. It seemed that the Earth Elite Zombie had thrown everything to the wind and returned to Hansha when his master had called him just now, so he'd completely forgotten Trunks and the others. Only after Hansha's inquiry did the Earth Elite Zombie remember that he'd been in charge, so he used his natural talent to dig a tunnel again. The Earth Elite Zombie could swim freely within the earth, but Trunks and the others didn't have this miraculous talent. Thus, the tunnel was essential. The Earth Elite Zombie was using his talents to create a passage in the valley, and thus, his current speed couldn't compare to his usual flying through the earth. The 3 demons were quite a distance away. One was following the Cairo mercenary band's chief Lorton. Lorton had returned to his twice berserk state now and was escaping towards the Valley of Sunshine along with the rest of the remaining Cairo experts. The Cairo mercenary band had taken severe damage after the intense battle in the valley. A dozen experts had been killed in sensing Lorton. However, He understood that it was simply impossible for the Cairo mercenary band to win against the three other forces outside the Valley of Sunshine. He intended to return with full effort to the Valley of Sunshine and take revenge at a later time. Another Yin demon remained in the valley. Since Han Shao had beaten Ferguson to death, Florida had suffered a major blow. He was currently holding Ferguson's corpse and letting out earth-shattering wails. He'd simply forgotten about leading the pursuit of Lorton. Ferguson had dearly spoiled his grandson, paving a great and easy path for his growth. It was due to Ferguson's identity as well as support from the Church of Light that allowed Florida to have the confidence in contesting Lorton for the position of leading power in the Valley of Sunshine. However, since the grandfather who'd nurtured him had been beaten to death by Han Shao, it'd be hard to say if he could borrow the force of the Church of Light from now on. To Florida, his grandfather's death was emotionally unbearable and also threw a great wrench into his practical benefits. Even the sinister leader of the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band couldn't help but burst into tears under this double blow. The House of Menlo's group wasn't very far from Florida. Adam Menlo's was covered in injuries. When taking that sky-shattering blow from Han Shao, Adam Menlo had first circulated his fighting aura for a full-body defense before wrapping himself firmly in the Great Rock. That was how he'd barely escaped the grasp of death. Although he'd avoided heavy injury, his partner for decades, the Golden Winged Rock, hadn't shared the same luck. It had almost been scraped bald by the little skeleton's bone knife, and more than half the feathers on its golden wings had been snapped. When it had faced Han Shao's heaven-shattering blow, the rock had protected Adam Menlo out of instinct, using its enormous body to withstand the attack. Its injuries were extremely serious. In this moment, even though Adam Menlo's heart was dejected, he was also extremely furious. He shakily caressed the rock's bald, bloody wings and screamed with rage, "I want to kill him! I must kill him!" Exclamation marks. Several small powers lurking in the valley had witnessed all of the heaven-shaking changes that had taken place thus far. Han Shao's crazy atrocities were engraved in their minds and made the name of Soul Destroyer famous. Since Han Shao's performance tonight demonstrated his close relationship with the Soul Destroyer mercenary band, no one would dare to look down on the group's strength again. Han Shao used the three Yin demons to observe their surroundings. After a while, the Earth Elite zombie leapt out from the ground again. He pulled on Han Shao's sleeve and pointed his finger to the underground tunnel as if waiting for praise. Patting the Earth Elite zombie's shoulder, Han Shao said with a smile, "Not bad, you did it right this time." "Did what right?" Trunks followed up as he jumped out of the tunnel with a loud laugh. Gilbert also climbed out with a large hymn sack. Grant and the others followed behind, each also carried a large sack, their faces shining with excitement. "How were things?" Han Shao asked with a smile, knowing from their expressions that they must have had some generous gains. "It was hard to advance inside. There were rocks as sharp as knives. I'm afraid it'd have been simply impossible if it wasn't for your friends' help. There were several Rainbow Sickle mercenaries. We casually killed them all and took the raw ores that they harvested. We also mined some more and brought them here." Trunks seemed especially happy as he narrated with a carefree laugh. "Looks like the Rainbow Sickle mercenaries used the advantage of geography to gain a head start." Florida had actually dared announce that after killing Lorton they would give up the Mithril mine. How shameless. "Oh right, how big was the mine? How much did we harvest?" Han Shao scorned at Florida's pledge, then continued questioning. Shaking his head, Trunks said helplessly, "I'm not sure. We only came in contact with a limited area. What we brought back are a few raw ores with small amounts of mithril within. We need someone in the know to confirm what we've harvested today." If the Metal Elite zombie was refined, its natural talent could be used to scope out the size of the mine. With his ability to control metal and metal ores, the Metal Elite zombie could easily gather all of the resources in the entire silver mine within a short amount of time, leaving not even a piece of mithril behind. Unfortunately, the place of extreme metal was the most difficult to find out of the 5 extreme areas. He was unable to refine the Metal Elite zombie before locating it. With the Metal Elite zombie, Han Shao simply wouldn't have to worry about lacking any ores. When the ability of the dwarves and the Metal Elite zombie's natural talent to sense metal was combined, a steady supply of weapons would become a simple matter. Sighing for a bit. Han Sha-oh suddenly noticed some movement from Janet's bandit group. He immediately cursed, "Alright, let's leave first. The valley is engulfed in chaos, so we shouldn't stay here for the time being. You guys put down the oars, I'll put them into my space ring," Han Sha-oh urged Gilbert and the rest. Only Trunks wore a space ring amongst this bunch. Even Grant and the mercenaries used bags tied around their waists. Space rings were famously expensive. These mercenaries nationally didn't have enough gold coins to buy one. However, Grant and the mercenaries didn't act immediately upon Han Sha-oh's instructions. They looked to Trunks as if waiting for him to express his opinions. "Listen to him. From now on his commands are my commands. You guys should remember this well." Trunks had a strict face as he carefully instructed. "Understood." Grant's folks were relieved of a great burden after putting their sacks down. They hastily took the large sacks off their backs and placed them in front of Han Sha-oh. The weight of these large sacks loaded with large and small broken rocks were such that an ordinary person wouldn't be able to tolerate them. Even for these mercenaries, the way back to the Soul Destroyer mercenary base would be an unlucky, painful errand. One white light flashed after another. All of the large and small sacks disappeared into Han Sha-oh's space ring. After all was done, Han Sha-oh waved his hand, saying, "Follow me, we'll block Janet's escape route. This time we shall be the bandits and capture Janet." "Let's do it like that then. I must get some clear answers." Trunks immediately remembered Danny's matter when Han Sha-oh mentioned Janet. His happy mood turned sorrowful as he shouted with a darkened face. Two of the three demons had returned, while the last was closely following Janet's bandit group, paying close attention to their every move. The Soul Destroyers took a shortcut to block Janet's way under Han Sha-oh's directions, suddenly discovering some suspicious behavior from these people. Unexpectedly, Janet's gang was laying an ambush where the House of Minlo would pass. It seemed that Janet intended on taking advantage of the House of Minlo's heavy losses and make out like bandits.